One. Woo, baby! Come on now. You already know how to bring in that big introduction because today's guest is going to have big time energy. Kacia is a big friend of mine and someone who I've gotten to know pretty well over the last 6 or 7 months. And I've been waiting for this interview. And I'm going to give her a bio in just a sec, but she is somebody that brings the energy, brings the fire. She's got couple goals. She's got real estate. She's got podcast game. I mean, she does it all. So let me introduce her real quick here, and then you will get to meet the one and only Kacia Ghetmiri. So Kacia is a life enthusiast, multi-passionate entrepreneur, speaker, and podcaster who's on a mission to help women unapologetically share their voice and message with the world. Along with hosting her own podcast, Empower Her, which surpassed 6 million downloads in only 3.5 years. She has helped over 350 women launch and grow and monetize their own shows. She's also hosting her very first live women's event, Empower Her Live, on October 21st to 23rd of 2022. Kacia has found that what's often holding women back is the thoughts that they think about who they are and what they are capable of. So she takes her knowledge from working with hundreds of entrepreneurs over the years, paired with her high energy, bubbly personality, and a come with me, let's figure it out together approach to light a fire under their booty, to get out of their way and go. Kacia, welcome to the show.
Jake, I'm so excited. Let's freaking go. That bio is so long and you did it with so much enthusiasm. I would never expect anything less than you. I'm pumped to be here with you.
I think it's underrated when humans connect with other humans that we get excited to see them.
Yeah.
You know, like too often, just as human beings, we're like, oh, I'm going to meet you, or oh, I'm going to read your bio. It's boring. No, you make life as interesting as you want. And that's something that you do so freaking well is you make life this fun game that when people look at you, they're like, who are you? So let's start there. Who are you? And how in the world do you have this bubbly personality all the time, 24/7?
So, I mean, of course I've got a cranky side every now and then if I don't get food or water like a normal human. But I'm just really passionate about life because I believe that our days are numbered here and we don't know the count. So I just may want to make it count while I'm here. I don't want to just wait until some arbitrary milestone to reach that to feel proud of myself. And really what I've done my entire entrepreneurial career is I've listened to this inner gut feeling. It's like a visceral feeling for me, which I know a lot of people listening in can connect with this, where it's telling me that like good's not going to work for me. I want to have great, whether that's in my business in terms of how aligned I feel and how passionate I am, or if that's in my marriage, or if that's in my friendships. I'm really curating an environment of people around me that are conducive to, where I want to go and are passionate about life too. Like people like you that have such high energy, because I think so often we go through the motions and we do things to get it done, but I really want to do it to do it. Right. And like, I want to have the full experience here, which means the contrast of being a human, of the highs and the lows. But at the same time, it's just, I think that a lot of whatever you're looking for, you're going to find. So I'm constantly looking for the ways that I can make something more fun. People write off, how can being a business owner be fun? They write off that question like it's trivial, but I'm like, that's the most important thing to keep me going. Because if you're enjoying what you're doing, you're going to keep putting your reps in, especially as busy entrepreneurs. A lot of people listening into the show, that sometimes you writing your book or you starting that business is the last thing that you added to your already full plate. So it's going to be the first thing that goes if you don't love it. So I've just made my life about listening to that my own intuition. I've started a lot of things and I've realigned when they didn't work. And I like to have my hands in a lot of things at one time. I'm not really someone who likes to niche. I like to play with it all. So that's where we are.
No, I love it. You said quite a few things there, but I want to talk about this gut feeling. All right.
Yeah.
A lot of people, are like, oh, was that my gut telling me what to do? Or, oh, I didn't listen to it and look what happened. Or I did trust my gut and it didn't work out. Or
Yeah.
my gut, it worked out. My gut was right. How do you know when it's a gut feeling that you need to pursue versus something going on where you're like, shiny object syndrome? Because there's a difference there. So how do you separate that?
I think the forefront of my brain, as optimistic and happy-go-lucky as I am, life's fragility is always on the forefront of my brain. I've lost two friends at age 30. As you know, my husband lost his dad last year. So I think a lot about if my days are numbered here, Like, what am I going to wish that I would have done? And so many people that listen into the show can connect with this idea of even like writing a book, for example. That's always been on your list. That's going to live beyond you. So I try to prioritize the things that I know it's like, I'm going to regret not doing this. Like if I get to the end of my life and I look back and I'm like, dang it, why didn't I do that thing? Right? Like, why didn't I go for it? And I think what really actually holds us back is not lack of clarity, but it's the fact that when we start something brand new, there's a big distance between where we are now and where we want to go. And we often label that space as something that doesn't serve us, like overwhelming, or I'm never going to get there. Or we get into this whole, comparison thing, or we, self-confirming bias kicks in where we start something and we're not very good at it because nobody's good when they start anything, but we start it and we're afraid of, quote unquote failing, but really what we're afraid of is other people watching us fail. So we just tell ourselves the story that we don't know what we want. But I guarantee you, if I like to use this example, if Oprah was like, yo, Jake, I'm going to give you $500,000 right now. I'm going to connect you to every single person that you need to make that dream happen. You have to tell me in the next 30 seconds what that thing is. You can come up with something. And so can every single person listening into this. It's just when you give yourself too much time and you sit in this analysis paralysis and you start looking around at everybody else thinking that they have something you don't, then you stay stuck. And, whether you get that feeling viscerally, like a lot of people do, it's very like a physical reaction. I can tell like, oh, this is something that I got to do because I know I'm going to regret if I don't do it. I also have this ability to tap into the logical side where it's like, what's the worst that could happen? You start it and it doesn't work out. Well, then at least process of elimination, and you don't have to end up with those coulda, woulda, shouldas, which to me is much scarier than regret.
Yeah, I mean, I always say I'd rather live a life of oh wells than a life of what ifs,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and you hit the nail on the head there, and I think it's interesting because everything you're saying all ties together.
Yeah.
So let's talk about somebody who does have this dream, whether it's starting a podcast, which is your specialty, or whether it's
Yeah.
getting someone to write a book, which is my specialty. You
Mm-hmm.
know, what if someone's not in tune with their gut? What if someone just knows that it's their dream, but they are scared? They're scared of being judged. They're scared of not getting it done. They're scared of getting it started. What can they do, or what can somebody think so that they will be prepared to at least give it the shot that they deserve, so they can make the best decision of keep going or to stop?
Yeah. So I think at the basis of everything is confidence. And you have a huge opportunity when you're creating something and putting it out into the world, whatever platform that is, whatever business that is, to give yourself a lot of opportunity to build up confidence. So to give you an analogy, I think of confidence like a bucket. So every single day that you show up and keep a promise to yourself, it's like you're putting a deposit into this bucket, right? Like plop, 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 plop. Well, when you're doing something, before you feel like you're ready to do it, that's such a massive deposit into your confidence bucket. It's scary because of course your brain is trying to protect you and keep you in your familiar thought patterns. As humans, we're primarily designed to want to do the thing that we've been doing for a long time because it feels as if it's safer. We're not designed to want to jump out there and like write the book and start the podcast and move to the city and whatever, do all the stuff. But I think we have to remind ourselves that at the basis of this is confidence, where you start to believe in your ability to figure things out. It's not that you don't care what other people think, you just start to care what you think more. And when we can get ourselves to that mindset, that's the secret sauce. So from a tactical perspective, for someone listening into this, if you're like, gosh, there's this thing that I think I want to do, but I'm not sure, I would ask you, what can you do in the next 24 hours to take action on that, to get that dopamine hit that comes from taking one step in the right direction? Because action gives you clarity, but it also gives you that real awesome, like high feeling of like, wow, like let's freaking go because I'm moving in the right direction versus I'm staying there. And, I'm looking for all the reasons that it won't work out and I'm spiraling downwards. And I always say on my podcast, because so many women listen in, I'm like, it's like when you're crying on your bathroom floor, like the ugly cry where your snot and your mascara gets together and chokes on, and you choke in your mouth on it because you're like, oh, I suck. We got to get us out of that stage and get us into action. And I think truly it's really not the big things. Like to someone listening into this, maybe you want to run a marathon. You're not going to probably, unless you're in ridiculously good shape, then cheers to you. You could run a marathon tomorrow, but you can sign up for a marathon tomorrow. You can pick a race and you can decide and commit to the training plan. You're not going to write a book in one day. You can do it pretty quickly with you, Jake. But you're not going to do it in one day, but you can reach out to that person who has that program to have a conversation about it. And it's like, what can you do to do that one tiny little thing? Because progress in the right direction just makes you feel like you're so much more capable. And again, it's those deposits. And that's what I think we really need as entrepreneurs, as ambitious people that would listen into a show like yours,
Okay, so what do you think about this then, right? Because
Yeah.
we're focusing on these deposits,
Yeah.
and deposits can take time, right, to build up, right? We know
Yep.
compounding of whatever over time creates great results. But let's say we want to speed this up. Do
Yeah.
you believe in the fake it till you make it philosophy, or do you believe in showing up as you are and just doing the best that you can with what you got at that moment in time? What's your breakdown there? Because that could directly impact how quickly you make deposits or what type of deposits you're making for long-term results.
Love this question. So I think every person gets to define what their own success criteria is of like what those deposits actually look like, depending upon the season of life that you're in and what your goals are. Because what I don't want to have happen is someone has these massive goals, but their actions don't match those goals. And then they feel like they're failing. And then of course they're going to throw in the towel. So I think it's really kind of goes to this root of like, what is going to make you feel most aligned? Like when I started my podcast, Empower Her, the intention was I wanted to create this come with me, let's figure this out together type of podcast. I felt as if there were a lot of women that were in the personal development space in particular that felt like they were 3 years ahead of me. And they're like, oh yeah, Kacia, back when I was at your stage 3 years ago, this is what I did to get out of it. And let me tell you now in hindsight, versus I wanted a show that was like, let me pull back the curtain and say how much this sucks sometimes and how much it feels like when you're an entrepreneur that you're having your best day and your worst day in the same freaking hour. And you're like, what am I doing with my life? Like that's so normal. And so for me, one of my deposits into my confidence bucket was I was actually treating building my business and building my brand like I was almost like on a dimmer switch. Okay. So not like a light switch, like I had to be all myself straight out the gates, like the person that I am behind closed doors with my husband, with my friends, with even with you. Right. But I didn't feel like I had to have the pressure that I had to be fully myself, but I intentionally was like, let me be a little bit more and more me. Like I'm turning on a light switch from a dimmer perspective. So every single day that I did that and I showed up to be the most authentic version of myself that I could be at that stage with that, with the fears that I had and had to work through, that was a huge win for me. So I am not about fake it for you make it or fake it till you make it because of the fact that I think we're sick of carefully curated content and everybody thinking that they have to act like their ish is all together. I don't think it's relatable. I don't think it builds connective tissue with your audience. I would actually argue this to the end of time because it's such a core belief of mine of why I've been able to build a podcast and a brand and a business is because I'm not pretending, which also means I don't feel like an imposter because an imposter implies that you're faking it, right? And I'm not faking it. I'm like, I'm just trying to figure it out like as we go, like we all are as humans, right?
Well, this is so good. And look, everything you're saying, you've done too, right? So, yes,
Yeah.
you're saying it as you're doing it, which I think is the most relatable, but you're also showing it once you have the proof in the pudding of what happens
Yeah.
when you do what you're talking about. 6 million downloads in 3.5 years. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? You got a live event coming up. Are you like that's the dream for some people, right? Like, and
Yeah.
you're doing it all, but here's what's cool. You're on your social media saying, hey, this is my first event. Who's coming? We can have,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, but we're doing it. But
Yeah.
that's literally what it means to put the deposits in each day, turn up that dimmer and make things happen. But
Yeah.
you also talked about connective tissue and bringing people together. I think you've done a great job at building community. What do you think is the secret sauce to building community? And I want to preface this by saying everyone says the word community like this
Yeah.
buzzword. Oh, I have a great community. I've built this community. Most people shut the fuck up. Like you have, you know what I mean? Like you've gotten a following. That doesn't mean you have a community.
Yeah.
You
So
have
real.
a large amount of people on your email list. It doesn't mean you necessarily have a huge community. How do you
Mm-hmm.
define community and how have you been able to create this secret sauce of just tight knit, action driven Kacia lovers? You know what I mean? Who
Yeah.
really take your come with me attitude and put it into practice.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think it's figuring out who it is that you're most excited to serve, like what stage of life that they're in, what problem you're most excited to solve, not from a niche perspective, because I think we get really caught up in this like niche of like, I need to know exactly who it is. For me, I think about if somebody were to slide into my DMs on Instagram that wants to start a podcast, what stage of life are they in and what is the problem that they have. And the problem that I'm most excited to solve is for the woman that on paper checked all the boxes and everything made sense, but she too had this feeling that she wanted more, but she didn't know what more was, right? So she wants to start a business, or she wants to build a podcast or write a book or whatever it is that she wants to do, because she's like, I just want to make an impact here. So I know who she is and I know what her fears are, which means she's concerned what other people think about her. She's lacking clarity. She's probably got some anxiety around it. She actually might feel guilty because she has a good life. And in comparison to a lot of other people, she's got a great life and she feels guilty that she wants more because she doesn't want to quote unquote leave people behind. She doesn't want to offend people. She might have people pleasing tendencies. I know her like I know myself, but she's not me. She's someone who's navigated through some of the things that I've navigated, but I've named her. Her name's Ashley. And I talk to her and everything that I'm doing. And there's a couple different versions of stage of life of where she's at, but knowing who it is that you're most excited to serve, and then knowing what are a couple of major things that she's going through and how you can find that out is literally treating your own email list, your own social media, your podcast, whatever, like you're doing market research constantly. I ask, like, not what do you want to hear from me, because that puts the work onto your community, but instead, what are you navigating through in your life? What's a dream that you have on your heart right now? What's something that you've always, whatever, what are you struggling with? What's keeping you up at night? So I have a really good pulse on what she, like the collective group, is going through. And then I just think about how that would apply to Ashley, which means I create all of my content through that lens. Is I'm the content creator, but I'm also the producer, which means I don't bring people into my community unless I know that they can specifically help this particular person. So that's helped a ton. And then co-creating, one of my biggest pet peeves in entrepreneurship is people that like to create behind closed doors and then they launch it out into the world and then they wonder why people don't feel connected to the product or program or service. And it's because they didn't feel like they were part of it. So when launching a podcast or launching a book, I'm always like, how can you bring your community along on the ride? Asking for feedback constantly. I'm always asking like this or this, right? Would you want this cover or this cover? As you know, my husband Cena and I are about to launch a podcast together in the real estate investing space. And we are going to pull everybody along on the ride for that. Like, do you like this or this? Do you like this name or this name or this tagline? So how can you co-create? How can you do more market research? Who do you really want to serve? And then how can you get them to connect with each other through various platforms? That's been the ultimate like secret sauce for me. Just, and then doing it for freaking years, like consistently, right?
Yeah, repetition. No,
Yeah.
this is really, really good stuff. And as you're thinking about it, I'm like, okay, do we make sure we have all these pieces in when we're helping people write books? And it's like, look, the more you know that person, right, that you're talking about, the easier it becomes to create that content for them. The more questions you ask, the better answers you're going to get to help you make the decisions that you've been freaking out about for 3 weeks on. When all you have to do is ask 3 to 5, 10, 20 people, depending on how big your audience is when you're first doing this thing. So I love how you kind of really break that down. But the one piece I really want to know is, you mentioned that you have to be excited to solve the problem.
Yeah.
How important do you think this is in relation to knowing Ashley? Do you think it's a 50-50? Or do you think it's like, well, if I'm not passionate, then I'm not going to do it no matter how much I can help Ashley? Like, do you think that impacts the ability to do it for years and years and years? Or where does that come into play?
So I think it's two parts. I love this question so much too. I think we talk a lot and you hear a lot in entrepreneurship about like, why is it that you're doing it? And I think there's two parts to that, where one is the why of the person that you're most excited to serve, that you feel compelled to want to serve, which for me is the woman who on paper checked all the boxes, because my last corporate job was at Google. I had a great job, but I just really wanted more. And so I can really connect with her and a lot of the feelings that she's feeling. So I want to help all the Ashleys in the world specifically. Do I want to help other people? And does my podcast reach 90-year-olds and 16-year-olds? Yes, but I'm helping Ashley and she's in her mid-30s. But at the same point of that is, I think sometimes we make it about everybody else, but we forget to also make it really personal. So when I think about my why, back when I started my very first business, I had to get really clear about what it was, because I was working 60 hours a week at Google while building my first business before and after work, while my now husband was at NYU Dental School. And it was so hard because, especially for someone listening into this that's a brand new entrepreneur, you don't have proof to look back on to say, see, last time I did it, it worked out. So you're in that like character, grit, resilience building season where you're trying to build up like your belief in yourself. And it's way freaking harder than a couple years in. You're always going to be challenged, but it's a different kind of hard when you're just starting. And so what I had to do was make it really personal, where I was like, okay, me showing up for this, whether it is writing a book, and that would be difficult, whether it is staying consistent with a podcast or building a business, I was like, who else is this about? Well, it was about two people for me. One was my now husband, where I was like, I want to support him through dental school. And I want to make sure that in the future, he's got all of the options in the world. And I know that I can help contribute to that so we can have all of the optionality. Like I'm very driven by options and choice. And I knew building that business would give us those options. And I wanted to take the pressure off of him while he was in school from a financial perspective. That was super important to me because what he was doing was so hard. And then I had this hypothetical conversation in my head often with our future kids. And we don't even have kids yet, as you know, but for anyone listening in, but I picture that I'm going to be the type of mom that wants to tell our kids that they can do anything. And I know I will, but I want them to be able to look back at me as living, breathing proof of someone who showed up. I think that your life is a testimony of what's possible for other people. And I don't want them to be able to look at me and be like, thanks, mom, for telling me to chase my dreams, but why didn't you? So that was so personal. Those two things, like my future husband and our future kids, was so personal. And then all the Ashleys in the world, those two together, that's going to give me the fuel to figure out anyhow along the way. Because if your why is strong enough, you can figure out anyhow. I believe that to be true to my absolute core. So it's a little bit of a dance of both, but I think it matters more who and why than it does all of the tactical stuff that we get caught up in.
So good. And the why is, I mean, the why is so important. This is one
Yeah.
of the first things we have authors do who want to write a book is why do you want to write this book? Because it's
Yeah.
going to be hard. You're going to
Yes.
find times. Starting a podcast can be very hard. Why do you want to do this? What is the end game? What is your
Yeah.
definition of success for doing this, and why do you want to do it? And I always like to think about this as like, I used to love NSYNC, and their song Bye Bye Bye. And I said, if your why ain't strong enough, then bye bye bye, right? Like doing that thing that the NSYNC does. But it's true. Like if the why isn't strong, you won't finish it. There's one buy. People won't relate to it. There's your second buy. And third, it doesn't matter if you weren't involved and your quote unquote your Ashley isn't involved. Then there's no point in actually continuing to move forward because you're not going to show up for yourself and you're not going to show up for your kids, your future kids, or the people that actually need you. So I love what you
Yes.
said there. How many kids do you want?
Two. Cena, my husband Cena's dream would be twins, but like he's not the one that has to birth them. So here we are.
Okay, so two kids, and you're starting a real estate podcast. You have your podcast. You're starting a live event. How do you, before we talk about this live event, how do you do everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have so much going on. You are always executing, like you practice what you preach. You're a living testimony of what can be done. How do you actually do everything that you aim to do while also maintaining tons of choice and option?
Yeah. It's such a balancing act. And I think I'm always analyzing, like, kind of what we were talking about is what is your success criteria in this season? Because I think so often we know not to compare ourselves to other people, but what I've actually struggled with more is comparing myself to a prior version of myself when the circumstances were different. Right. So for example, when you have, your in-laws are in town and you also have this big launch thing of something that's going on and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you don't show up as consistently on social media. Well, your success criteria has to fit what season, like where you find that like balance between like radical responsibility to grow and show up and do the thing that you said that you're going to do, even after the feeling that you said it and is gone, with also having compassion because you're a human. Like there's 7, billion of us. We're just trying to figure it out as we go. So I think I've gotten really, really good at like mastering that balance. But also I remind myself that I used to struggle with asking for help because part of it was a coping mechanism from my upbringing, where I felt as if in order for it to get done and, I would have to take it on myself. I'm like, okay, well, if I want to make sure that it's done and if I want to believe that it's going to work out, then I'm going to put it on my shoulders. But after I realized as an entrepreneur, you literally cannot do that. Your business will never outgrow you. So I recognize that it feels really good when you get to help someone. So if I choose not to help people that are willing to help me, then I'm robbing them of the fulfillment and joy that comes from helping. And I'm not going to do that anymore. And I'm robbing other people that are close to me, because it's not strangers that see the worst side of you. It's the people that you love the most. And that's not fair. And I just didn't want to show up like that. Right. So it's a little bit of a mindset. It's trying to map out my priorities before my to-dos, because I don't want to be the person that gives lip service to saying that my family or my friends or whatever matter most to me, but then I'm not backing it up. So sometimes things take the back burner that are opportunities that are really awesome that I have to say no to because it doesn't feel like it's a hell yes. And now, as you know, Jake, but for anyone listening in, my husband Cena was a dentist. So he worked outside of our house. And I was used to being an entrepreneur all by myself in my own space all the time. And now we're working full-time together. I build the podcast courses in my brand and am planning for my first event with my operations manager, Jackie. And then him and I together are building out our own real estate portfolio. And it's a lot that we're juggling. And it's also a lot of navigating two people that have been together for 13 years, but have extremely different work patterns and tendencies. He's super tidy. I'm really messy. It's always worked for me that way. I have ADHD and I get really excited all the time, and he's super focused. Like, I mean, it's yin yang and it works so well together, but we have to really learn how to navigate that to make sure that we've got time when we're working together, but then also time when we're married to each other. And sometimes we're having to put on both of those hats, where I can talk to him critically, like we're business owners together, but then it's like, then I'm also his best friend and wife. So it's like a lot of like switching gears, but it's really fun. It's really rewarding. And honestly, I like, we've always envisioned taking our kids to school together, and that's what we're building. So I'm excited about that, you know?
Do you have things in your calendar that are non-negotiables for you as a business owner and entrepreneur, and then you as a best friend, wife, partner, future amazing mom?
Yes, we do. We work out every morning together. We actually hired a trainer because of how easy it is to be like, oh, I'll start in 30 minutes. Anyone that's an entrepreneur listening into this, it's so easy to be like, well, I'll just do it in 30 minutes, in 30 minutes, in 30 minutes. And all of a sudden you're like, crap, it's 3 p.m. And now I have so much I have to do. And like, Jake, you can't attest this, but once you have like a hair wash shower and you're ready for the day, you're like, now the workout doesn't feel really great. But we do morning walks with our dog where we listen to a podcast. We like split little podcast years. It's super cute. You can come on and walk with us. And then at night, we also do that too, recapping. So that's kind of like our time together, is like we bookend the days. And then we're just really strategic about what are the blocks that each of us have. And then when do we need to overlap together? And it's a balancing act. I mean, we're learning it in real time, but I think we're pretty good at prioritizing the relationship, because that's always been the most important to both of us.
Yeah, I think you guys do a great job both knowing you and seeing what you do share with the public. I think you do a great job. I know for me, I've been in my relationship for a little bit now, and I'm really enjoying it and navigating it
Yeah.
and learning. But there's a non-negotiable on date night. Like date night's the
Yeah.
thing on the calendar. There's no meetings that could overrun that.
Yeah.
Except if I'm traveling, we'll have phone calls. Like we're going to that season of everything of like experimentation, but it all begins with communication. And
Mm-hmm.
it begins on, are you actions matching your dreams? Are your actions matching your priorities? Are your actions matching the direction that you want to go? And all of your actions seem to be going in the right direction, right? And do you know where that end game is? Not necessarily, but
Yeah.
you know that your actions are going to help you create the clarity to get there. And part of that, a road stop, is this event that you have coming up. And this is awesome. So you built this brand, you have an incredible community, and you were like, it's time for your first live event. So talk to me about, what is this event? How are people getting interested in it? And let's break it down a little bit.
Yeah, you're so awesome. So it's funny, when I started my podcast, the intention was I wanted to create this community of a bunch of women that wanted to be more honest and open and pull back the curtain with each other and stop trying to pretend like our ish is together all the time. Cause I'm just so bored of it. This carefully curated, like, look, my marriage is great and my bank account's busting out and like all the things. I'm like, I'm so bored. I want to just be real. So when I started my podcast, this was a vision that I had. Obviously, when we got to the point that I felt like we could do it with the size of the community, where it would be it wouldn't be as difficult to sell it out, then the world decided to shut down. So we've been waiting for a second to do this, but now it's going to be 550 women in person in Phoenix, Arizona, October 21st through the 23rd. The speakers that we have, I strategically picked because they've been really influential in my life. And I knew that they would be in the audience's eyes too. And we're just being really intentional about everything. I'm learning how to work with brands in real time. I'm trying to share that even on social media, like pulling back the curtain, like we're trying to figure this out. I actually will share all of the numbers about the event in terms of the costs versus the profits and all of that, because again, there's not enough transparency in how much freaking money it costs to put on an event, but also how profitable that they can be if you're really intentional about how you do it. But really, I just wanted to create this awesome transformational like 3-day event. It's going to be like a live podcast. We have 8 keynote speakers, tons of opportunity for women to connect, because I think it feels lonely if you choose to let it feel lonely. But I think if you lean in and you find your people, your whole life changes. Your business changes for damn sure. We know that. Like your net worth, it does come from your network, but also your happiness and your joy. So I was like, let me just create a really epic event and just have people leaving feeling really inspired to take action, but also really connected. So that's what we're doing at Empower Her Live. And I'm so stoked about it.
It's going to be amazing. I mean, your speakers are awesome. The intention behind it's really incredible. I'll never forget the first event that I put on when we ran the Pro Basketball Combine. The first time I did it, I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
The only thing that I knew was that I had a date that it had to be, and the contract was signed. And if I didn't make it happen, I was screwed.
Yep.
And what was really cool about it was when you focus on people and when you focus on giving them what they want and creating something that gives them a memory, a opportunity, a chance to connect, that puts you in a league of its own.
Yeah.
Because on the flip side, I've never been to an event that wasn't life changing in some way.
Yeah.
Some might be because of the speakers. Some might be because of the host. Some might be because you meet a future best friend or partner. Some might be because you ended up finding a city that you want to live in, which then leads to you finding a connection that leads to a romance to leading to you having a family. Like, you don't know what you can expect, but when you trust the person to bring you this experience, and that's what I think you're going to do so well. When you trust the person, you can do some really incredible things. And if you have a book going to a conference, your ability to connect puts you in an
Yeah.
entire new opportunity, because you now have a resource that allows people to start to get to know you quicker, because they
Yes.
see you as an expert, they see you as an opportunity. So if you have a book, you need to go to Kacia's event and you need to bring your book, and then you need to connect with people and just make everybody happy and connect with everybody. And it's ELE, baby. Everybody love everybody. So, Kacia, let's get ready to wrap this thing up here. We've talked about a lot, okay? You've given us the goods here. In your life, what would you say is the thing that you are most excited to do? And what is the next action you can take in 24 hours to do that?
Oh, that's a good one. Gosh, I just think it's how I show up. Like there's a lot of things that I want to do. Like obviously we want to start a family and there's, we want to build out all the things that we're building out. But really when you said that question, I instantly went to like, I just want to keep pulling back the layers, because I feel like the world just needs people who are lit up and excited. And I am someone who's got a lot of freaking energy like you. And I'm really open being myself. And I just want to keep being open, like through every single challenge that I'm navigating, whether it's when we are parents, in our marriage, and my career, and doing an event like this, like anything that I'm doing, I'm just like, I want to show up and be really freaking transparent. And I will continue to do that by putting out content and just being that person, and like who, when I'm around people, I'm present where my feet are, and I just want to like be there. I don't know. It's like it's not a concrete accomplished goal answer like an Enneagram 3 like yourself might give, but it's really like a presence human goal. I'm like, I just want to be a freaking like human who's open and just chases all of her big dreams with a crap ton of energy while I do it.
There you go. So how do we buy tickets to come to the event in October? How do we connect with you? How do we follow you? How do we come with you on this amazing journey that you're on?
Thank you so much, Jake. So my favorite social media platform is Instagram. It's Kacia, new name, who this? My last name is Ghetmiri, Ghetmiri. First name Kacia, Kaca, hard name. but worth it when you figure it out. And everything is at kaciaghetmiri.com. You can always slide into my DMs. Of course, if you listen into this podcast, as a podcaster myself who's helped so many women that have started shows, I will tell you, Jake, bringing it and you listening into this and being here and consistently showing up, it's a lot of work, and it's because you want to make an impact. So if this resonated with you, tag us, let us know so we can spread the word. But Jake, thank you so much. You're the best. I appreciate you.
Of course. So I got to do one final thing with you,
Yeah.
okay, before we jump off. And you know, I love saying, let's go. And I know you love saying, let's go. So on the count of three, we just got to hit a big let's go for everybody to see, because that's what we do over here. So 1, 2, 3.
Let's go. Wow.
There we go. I love it. I can't wait for that audio to come out on the pod, but we'll see what happens. And there you have it, everybody. Kacia in the house. Make sure to go check her out. Make sure, if you can, go get tickets to her event October 21st through 23rd of 2022. Kacia, I appreciate you so much. And everyone that took the time to listen, I appreciate you as well. You gave us your time, your energy, and your attention. And we will see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.